And you're just in time for Business Glide, your only point of call on matters public policy analysis, business and economics at large. Hosted by yours truly, Richard Mwanja. Indeed, it is an honor to have you on board. Now today we're going to discuss a plethora of issues, a cocktail of issues in the world of business. But first things first, allow me introduce to you our analyst for the day. He is none other than renowned public scholar and Kenya's most sought after political analyst, the first of his name, Herman Manyora.
How are you?
Today, done in all black. What's the occasion?
Just black.
Just black.
Black is beauty.
Nothing to do with offering.
During our youthful days, there was black power movement. I'm black and proud. Yes, I'm black and proud.
Black and proud.
Black and proud.
Very well. Yeah. Let's discuss matters to do with the latest development that came after the celebration of Labor Day on 1st of May. And how about we begin with the President's directive that for the Labor docket and also the trade union movement to engage in talks that will realize the 6% increase in minimum wages against Kotu's negotiated 22% raise in minimum wages. That loosely translates to about 912 Kenyan shillings raise on the salary of the lowest paid Kenyan worker. First things first. From a welfare efficiency standpoint, what do you make of that directive for the 6% increase in minimum wages?
There are 2 or 3 things quickly you can pick from that.
Sure.
One, the president was not necessarily serious because he wasn't categorical. No. On matters of wage increase, you state, because by the time the president comes to the function, he must have done due consultation and then he awards an increase. You cannot come and then leave it loose. So it's like he gave nothing. Because the product of talks and negotiation could be 6, it could be 4, it could be 0. And the negotiations could take a year, a month, 10 years. So it's the first time I'm hearing a president coming to a Labor Day function and loosely talk about an increment without being concrete. He was not concrete.
Sure.
That's the first thing. So it's like he didn't give anything. The second thing is 6, which is like you say 900, is just too little. I would have said it's a joke, but because it is coming from the president, I will be a little more careful and just use the word it is too little. And finally, whether the workers got 22 from suggested by Atoli and Kotu or not, will not solve the problem of workers in this country. If, I didn't do very well in mathematics. Actually, I failed. If 6% is equals to 900, 22 surely is still below 3,000 shillings.
True.
Is that not true?
It is.
That's true, eh?
Yeah, it is.
Because how do I work out? I say if it was 24%, then it will be 900 times 3, which will be 27, which means it's going to be less than 2,700, perhaps 2,600. That's still a joke.
But maybe from the eyes of the government, they believe Safari Abamba Machero.
I'm saying it is still a joke. Even if you give workers 100% increase, it is still a joke. So it depends on how you want to look at the wages. Yeah.
Very well then. But how about you also get to embrace yourself with this reality whereby the government is believing the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single mile and they cannot offer the workers a lump sum increase at a go, all due to what they term as a constrained fiscal space. What do you make of those justifications from the government?
That's understandable. What I'm saying depends on what level of thinking you want to operate. What is your level of thinking? Does this country want to operate at that level of thinking? Mahali mkoloni aliwacha nyinyi mubake tu hapo. Because these salaries were meant for natives.
Natives?
The basic structures we are using for salaries were salaries for natives. So if you don't want to think beyond the thinking of the colonial master, who had no respect for the African worker, who paid a white police officer 30, 40, 50 times perhaps more than he paid a black police officer. The difference between I've given nurses, black nurses and white sisters or nurses was a whole Rift Valley. So if you don't want to get out of that thinking, you will continue giving wage increments. You see, in fact, In many places, they don't even need, unions are not there for wages and for salaries because it's automatically adjusted. You know, you're an economist, eh? Cost of living, the indices you use,
parameters.
They are parameters, they're automatic. Based yourself on inflation and other parameters. Then it's an adjustment. And if you are careful and you see what happens in these developed countries, you realize we are talking about decimal points sometimes. We are talking about 1%, 2%, you know, at most 2 and 2.5. It never gets to 4%. It will be crazy. Why? Because that's how the inflation works. So you look on the ground and ask yourself, yes, a man is earning 10,000. What the minimum wage, by the way? I've forgotten. Say 15,000.
15,000.
For example. If I give this person 10%, people could clap for me, but what does it translate to? Let's even advance it further. If I give such a person 100%, what does he get now? 30,000? Then you go back on the ground and ask, this man stays in Nairobi. Let's give him 100 shillings for fare for 25 days. That's 2,500.
Sure.
Let's give him rent. He has an average family. Rent of 10,000. That's already 2,500.
12,500.
12,500. Then you go. Then you realize, even before he eats, is already that 30,000 shillings. Before. So there's nothing for school fees, nothing for saving at all.
And zero for investment.
Zero for investment. I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
Cycle of poverty.
Then you'll have to ask yourself, if this is the typical Kenyan worker, how does he contribute to the growth of the economy? A person who can hardly survive, a creature of that nature. How can a creature like this, because he's not a human being, this creature, how does he contribute to the economy? Because the concept of a man is born, he works, then he dies, must be examined critically. A man is not a machine. First of all, work must not only bring you food on the table, which it must, of course. It must also bring some measure of happiness. Okay? Some measure of happiness.
Satisfaction.
It must go beyond your tummy. Okay?
Sure.
So this individual we are talking about, let's now go back, let's call him a human being now. Now he has children. Can he afford to take a child to school?
Hardly.
Not hardly, he can't. Because the 30,000 is already gone after taxation. So we have taxed the 30,000.
True.
What remains, you have taken housing, you have taken all those things. What remains is just basic food. Na hiyo chakula yake tukimpa, tunampa sukuma wiki for 30 days. Nyama anakula tarehe 15, quarter kilo ama nusu, na tarehe 30.
Barely surviving.
Yes.
Not thriving.
So if you look at salary that way, then you begin to see what I'm talking about. But at the economic point of view, we need an individual to contribute towards the growth of the economy. When he spends money, especially after he has eaten and paid rent and those small things and school fees, he must be left with some little money to spend.
Disposable income.
Disposable income. That is how you grow an economy. And above that, he must also save. Because banks don't manufacture their money. Banks have money from people saving. They are people's savings. Banks don't start with their money. They start with money. They use money from people. You start with some little money with the bank.
Depositors.
All the money belongs to the people who deposit. And that money, you as a bank, you don't keep it. You lend it to long-term investors to go and do real estate, industry, to build factories, what. That's how an economy is growing. So if we pay people the salaries we are paying them, we are then saying either we do not understand how an economy works, which is not surprising, okay, or we are determined not to grow the economy. The only way to grow an economy is to make sure you have people with money in the pocket.
The purchasing power.
And most money in Kenya is money from salaries. Sijui kama tunaelewana? We are not a very highly commercialized agricultural society. Agriculture is the mainstream, but it's not commercialized. It's not industrialized agriculture. So money that the people have is from salaries. Villagers will die if you stop paying people salaries. If sometimes for 3 months there were no salaries for salaried people in this country, the effect will be people in the villages will die. Because when people earn their salary, the little they earn, another reason why they must be paid well, they are the ones who are supporting extended families. That's the Kenyan. You must understand Kenya itself. That's how Kenya works. My salary is not mine. It belongs to my payslip. Inangojewa na watu wengi, including people who are not even related to me. People who are not even working for me.
Black tax?
That's how the Kenyan economy operates. Sure. So this salary, you must factor that in when you are looking at salaries. You get it?
Sure.
So if people do not have salaries to be able to grow the economy, even when I see people building up this big, putting up these malls, they are wasting their time. Because there's no business going on in this country. And therefore, when you look at a salary, it depends on at what level. If you want us to clap for you because of 6%, we shall clap. If you want us to clap for you because of 22%, we shall clap for you. But if you want us to engage you and engage ourselves and have a national conversation about that which is serious, if you want us to have a conversation around the wage bill, around wages, around salaries, a conversation that takes into consideration the fact that we must grow the economy to be able to create employment for these young men and women who are leaving colleges. So if we don't have that conversation, and if we don't know that it is salaried people who are driving this economy, then we are wasting our time. And finally, you must also know, government is the biggest employer, almost the only employer in this country. So we are saying, as Kenya enters into the money economy, from the subsistence economy it has been in the 60s and 70s and part of the 80s, we are almost fully into the money economy. It is salaries from Kenyans who earn that sustain livelihoods in the entire country. And if we also admit that it is government that employs salaried people almost entirely, then we are beginning to see the need for government to address the issue of salaries in a much more serious way than it has hitherto done.
Very well.
Yes.
I'm curious to understand, would you then describe the most recent Labor Day celebration as one that was sort of underwhelming and colorless from your optic?
No. That was a wonderful Labor Day. It was wonderful. It was well attended. The president graced the occasion. We must congratulate him. From his busy schedule, he was able to be with the workers. That's something commendable. He showed commitment that he understands that Kenyans need to be supported by way of salaries, and he made a suggestion. He made a proposal. We hope it will come to reality, that they will get the 6%. But we are only pointing out, one, that 6% is not enough. Even 22 will not be enough. But it's welcome. Workers are happy. But in future, let us get a much more comprehensive conversation around salaries. Yeah.
Very well. And very lastly, for Brother Francis Atwoli, the Secretary General of COTU's Central Organization of Trade Unions, will you perhaps maybe challenge him to raise his voice more on matters to do with the trade union in Kenya?
You know, I have heard people, the last time I had Atwoli in church, is it Thanksgiving, the last Sunday before the traditional one from Tomboya days at St. Stephen's Jogo Road. And he said the sort of things they have been able to do. So it depends on how you want to approach trade unionism. Atwoli is an experienced trade unionist. He knows even those who have made noise and banged their chests. Sometimes they have not achieved much. He gave a chronology of events from uprooting the colonial labor laws to the current 2007-2012 labor and industrial relations law, whatever it's called. And there are a host of other things that have happened. And I think I've also heard him talk about the intervention during COVID, which many people did not understand. If Kotu was not there to intervene, many workers were going to lose their jobs, because when Corona was around, hotels closed, even by government regulation itself. And these people are going to take advantage of that when they reopened, including those who had scaled down the production. They were going to take advantage of that to bring in new employees. Because if you are paying somebody 150,000 and you use that excuse to let him go and you bring a new one, you'll pay him 40,000 or 30. That's how court to intervene. That when we come back to normalcy, please don't hire a new person. Reinstate the ones who had gone home. Put others on half salary. And when things are well, can you please pay them back the 50%, even if it is in a staggered. So I think this Atoli's approach is one of negotiating with the government more than making noise. So if you want to judge Atoli by the way of by how much noise he makes, I think there you will not be fair to him.
Very well.
Although he talks, he has been firm on issues. But I know people are looking at the doctor's strike and saying, what has he said? But I think I want to give an example. There was this pilot's strike. He was able to bring the people. You see, again, KOTU, and again, people must also understand, KOTU is not the typical trade union. It's an umbrella union of independent trade union. They are just affiliates of KOTU. So if you are the general secretary of a particular trade union, it is you to wrestle the employer. You get it? Yeah. It's not KOTU. But KOTU provides training, it can intervene, it can mediate, it can give support. You know, it has more experienced departments and people. It has fully played labor department, economic department, legal. So these trade unions can get support from KOTU.
It is the
and it might be counterproductive if the Secretary General of KOTU made too much noise. When he is called to come in as a mediator, as a moderating voice, it will become difficult because he already have taken sides with the trade union. So these are the things I think we do not seem to understand about KOTU.
All right. Yeah. That point takes us to the wrap of this conversation today, talking matters to do with the recent Labor Day celebrations and what came out of that particular celebrations. And we've actually unpacked that entire conversation for you. Wait to see you on our next edition. Time now for Fan of the Week. It is none other than Madam Valerie Kimeria from Nairobi.
Valerie Kimeria, thank you very much for being part of the family. Thank you very much.
Asante sana. Up next on your screen is the Business Glide African Proverb of the Day.